Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. In today's episode, we're talking about what I think is a fascinating topic, getting your business to run itself and grow. I cannot wait to explore this. It's right up my alley with our very special guest, Eden Lovejoy. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brandon. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here today.
Yeah, this is exciting. I really do have a passion about this topic. And you said some things before we started recording that piqued my interest even more than usual because, yes, it's a cool topic, but I think a lot of people have talked about it. You have a very unique spin on it. So why don't you give us a sense of what does that mean, getting your business to run itself?
Sure. So the idea is that really up until now, there's been two different models for business leaders, that two different ways that business leaders think about running their business. One is when we're smaller, like I have to do it myself. And the second is when I get big enough, then I'll be able to hire somebody, a general manager or a COO, someone to run it for me so that I can get some freedom. And I'm here to suggest a third strategy that is for those businesses that are, especially in those businesses in a size or a space where hiring an executive seems like a far reach, that it's not necessary, that we can build the skills, talents, authority, and accountability into our existing operational leadership team to create a virtual GM, if you will, to fill the function of a general manager without hiring an individual to run that role. And that's the system that I've designed to put in place in client companies and that we've proven over time it actually works to get the business. And what it looks like from the outside is like it's running itself.
Yeah, this is why I love this, because that middle area of, well, I'm not big enough to hire yet, and then one day I will be. That's a big gap to bridge. And for a lot of companies, they never get past that gap, probably because it's very complex to do so. But there's a lot of gray area there. There's a lot of bad information out there of how you should grow, how you should hire executives. We don't need to cross that bridge today, but there's a ton of businesses in this sweet spot that I think could benefit from exactly what you're talking about. And I want to get into it, but I'm also curious where it came from. When did you first have this idea that maybe there was a way to navigate that gap effectively?
Oh, that's interesting. I think it really comes from it's been my curiosity, my whole career as a young woman. I got very clear very early that I wanted to work with small business and work in small business leadership or in that space. I have over my career led for-profits, nonprofits, venture capital funded startups, like a whole range of businesses from startup to 90 employee, 5 division contracting company, right? A lot of diverse experience. I like to say I'm a general manager by craft and inclination. But my initial vision was always that I never wanted to just work for a company. I always wanted to impact as many companies as possible. So it was a question of how do I translate what I'm good at into other companies? And then the natural evolution of that is how do I translate that without me being there? And so we just started tracking and paying attention. What are the key functions of a general manager? How can we get that done a different way? I was just curious and leaned into the possibility and over time developed this matrix of steps that put in place the creative tension and the accountability that really fills that role of a GM.
I love it so much. I love that. It all started with the question, what if it's possible, right?
Exactly.
Do it this way or do it differently. That's so fantastic. So, okay. But without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's unpack this a little bit. So how do we, let's say it's a company who's scaling, growing, maybe they don't have the resources to hire full-time management. or maybe the founder owner just doesn't want to be that manager, so to speak, right? Because I hear that from a lot of people too. Is I'm really good at this thing, or I love selling, I love doing the art of what I'm doing. I don't want to lead people. That's not why I started doing this. So, kind of either of those camps. What's kind of step one, and how do we get into this process?
I think the first is the idea of having a new idea, and letting go of the mantra that we've been drilled into us since the 80s, right? And since the 80s and the E-Myth, we've been told, don't work in your business, work on your business. And we've been like, it has been drilled into us that that's our job, work on the business. And so my suggestion is let go of that idea. It's not your job to work on the business. Begin to work with the business, to recognize that the business has a life, an energy, a culture, and that it's our job to tease out the assets and the resources that are there. And people want that. Our team wants that, right? They want to have the opportunity to lean in a new way. So once you have that new idea, then the key component first, and I know we've heard this forever, but I've got to say it too. Mission, vision, and values, the framework needs to be articulated clearly in a way that people can understand it. And I'm a real fan of very simple mission statement that's the why we're here, a vision statement that's where we're going, and a set of core values that's our agreement on how we're going to behave while we're playing. And for me, that has to come from the owner. That's not a team exercise. So the first piece is the owner, because it's the owner's company. And I'm all about, we got to build a business that works for this owner. So to communicate those framework pieces first, like that's the foundation.
I don't think I could agree with you anymore at this point. I'm inclined to just shut up and let you keep talking because this is perfect. I want to pause there though, because I agree so much on the mission, vision, and core values piece. I want to get your perspective. So we do the same thing with our clients. That's really the foundation of when we start working together, is understanding either what that is, if they already have it in place, hopefully, or if they don't, helping them craft it so that we can then build on that foundation. There's been a couple of times in this work where I came across owners who just didn't want to do it. They're like, listen, I don't really care. I'm just here to make money. I'll cut to the end and give you a spoiler alert. We stopped working with those people. But for you, like what have you come across that, and what's your reaction when people say that?
My reaction is, yeah, if you just want to make money, then be really clear about it and let's articulate that, because there are people who will want to come work for you who don't care about anything to do with emotional context, and they would just like to make money too, and let's hire the right people, right? So at least I just encourage people to tell the truth about who you are and what you're up to, but it is important to articulate it if you would like the team to, there's a lot of ways to be right in business. There's a lot of ways to build a business. For me, I can't help you build a business that you love or will enjoy or will work for you if I don't know who you are. The good news, I guess my strategy is a little different than some. I recognize it's really hard. So it's hard to know ourselves at that level. So one of the things that I'm really, I would say, expert at is I can have an hour-long conversation with an owner and then turn around and present them with mission and values. And then we can talk about their vision. So let me do it for you, because I realize it's a thing. I feel like we hear it so much that if it was easy to do, people would have already done it. So let me make it easy for you. And, we're 95% of the way there, and then you can refine it a little bit, but you have mission and values to work with, and we can move on.
Yeah, work with Eden. She's got way more patience than I do. That's what I heard you say there. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's awesome. Okay, so we have our foundation here. Where do we go from there when creating a business that we want to run itself?
So the next piece is to again, maybe not new information, but one that a lot of owners feel isn't necessary in their business, is to actually sit down and do an org chart and look at The reason that owners so often are enmeshed in their business is because they're actually working in about 5 different roles in the company. And so when we map out the functions that are happening in the company and then look at who's doing them, we can clearly identify like what structure needs to take place in order to start to free up time and capacity for the owner. So an org chart that makes sense, and then role definitions that are different from job descriptions. So there's some nuance to that. A traditional job description tells people what to do. A role definition shares with people what results they're accountable for, and then clearly identifies what authority they have to achieve that. So we build in, just the structure of who's going to do what is the next big piece.
Yeah, it's often I work with companies where that's not the case, and I'm sure you have the same experience. But then as soon as you just define it and get it on paper, the aha and the light bulbs start to go off for people. It's like I had no idea I was responsible for that because it was buried in like paragraph 17 of the job description that they were hired to, and no one ever told them.
Mhm.
And that's totally fine because it's not their responsibility to really uncover those things. But just defining what are you responsible for, what outcomes, what metrics, what does your day to day look like, even in some cases.
Mhm.
It could provide so much clarity for an organization that just these first two things that you talked about will unlock most companies to start growing
It
outside of
definitely
anything
creates
else.
capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I should have just stayed quiet and said I agree with that, but I didn't, and here we are. What's next? Because you're running the show at this point, and I love every second of it.
Absolutely. So then probably the next big piece is making sure as we begin to separate ourselves from being in all of the decision making day to day, we want to create the feedback loop, right? So it's delegation is not abandonment. So what we're building is a culture of functional delegation, and that means there's accountability the other side of that. And when I work with owners, I want to support them in building a dashboard that keeps the finger on the pulse of the business, as if you're sitting in the front office or the storefront or wherever that is, the hub of all the communications, so that we can make sure that things don't go off the rails, right? You have to have a sense of confidence that you know what's going on in your company. So that piece is important. But then we get to the really fun stuff. The fun pieces of really being able to develop curiosity in the team, and building so once we have a dashboard in place, we want to have next a system of idea generation and testing and vetting, and mid-course corrections, because if we're going to grow, we've got to be able to evolve with that growth. And with any business today, things are changing so quickly. We have to be able to respond appropriately. So we don't want that happening as a free for all. So building in the skill set and showing people of a specific process for idea generation and vetting and testing and then implementation. So putting that piece in place so we can support growth is the next big piece.
How do you roll that out so it doesn't squash the entrepreneur, so to speak? Because entrepreneurs by nature are usually creative people, and they have ideas left and right. That's why they started this business. They had an idea and they pursued it. But how do you do it in a way where it controls the implementation of and the vetting of those ideas, like you said? It doesn't scare away the employees because those people usually have less ideas but are really great at executing, and you marry those two together so it continues to move the business forward. It's a very complex road to navigate. How do you walk that line?
It is, I think, it goes to the testing, right? So entrepreneur has a brilliant idea for how we want to grow in a new direction. if there's an agreement that absolutely that might be the best idea, but maybe there's some nuance that the staff can bring into it. Like, are they willing to let other people play with the idea rather than just top down implement? And I guess that's a question. If you're an entrepreneur who still wants to do the top down implementation of your ideas only, then you're not quite in the place where you're wanting to let the business run itself, right? Because you're still actively involved in running and changing and shifting and doing things. But you can build in trust with your team. I guess here's a better answer. The better answer is, when you have clear values, if the idea comes in and the team has questions about it, they can approach it from the place of, well, our values are this and our vision is that. And so how does that fit into the map? Let us understand so that we can support you in the new brilliant idea. And conversely, when the team brings forward an idea and says, looking at our values and our mission, the growth that we want to have and the vision that we've got, here's an idea that we think supports that, then the entrepreneur becomes more excited and interested in hearing that presentation.
I love that answer. This has been fantastic. I know there's like a million more things to do, but I almost don't want people to know about them on this episode until they at least do the 3 things you already talked about, because that, like I said, that alone is going to get your business, regardless of where you are now, whether you're just starting, you're in 6 figures or 8 figures and beyond. Those steps will have a massive impact on moving your business forward. So Eden, I can't thank you enough for being here. Where should the listeners go to get the rest of this playbook, so to speak?
So I want to make it super easy for everybody. So freebusinessbook.com. Go to freebusinessbook.com, and my book is my gift to you. Like I said, my mission and my dream has always been to affect and impact as many companies as I can in my lifetime. So my book is available to you at freebusinessbook.com, my gift.
Thank you for that. It's on the screen. It's also down below in the show notes, wherever you're watching or listening. And I asked Eden before we started recording, I said, how in the world did you get that domain? But apparently no one else claimed it. It's relatively uneventful, but also amazing all at the same time. But Eden, thank you so much for being here. This is a great episode.
Thanks, Brandon.
For those of you watching, listening, thank you for listening. We could not do this without your support. So make sure you come back tomorrow, subscribe on whatever platform you're on. And thank you again for listening. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Harmonious at Lunch podcast. Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're on. And we want to invite you to join us in the Small Business Success Facebook group, our private group where guests and listeners come together to grow your business. We want impact-driven entrepreneurs who are ready to go to the next level in this group so we can all share ideas, collaborate, and grow our businesses together. Go to whatif.com/group, and we want to invite you to join today. See you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.